welcome to episode 39 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 1025 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. My name is Jason Fanelli, and I am the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. And I got a good show for you tonight. I'm very excited to bring this one to you. We're going to talk about the VALORANT Masters I, where the VALORANT Champions Tour stands right now. Top 8 teams in the first stage are ready to go. We're going to talk about the history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video games, because a new one was announced this week. Very excited for that one. And then we're going to get into Fortnite's Chapter 2 Season 6, which starts on Tuesday. I'll give a look back at the season that was, and I'll give a couple of ideas as to where they could be going from here. But before all of that, it is time for the 6 in 60 seconds. The Atlanta FaZe win the Call of Duty League's first major, going undefeated in the entirety of Stage 1 and beating the Dallas Empire 5-2 in the final. Jay Sinatra 1 of the Sentinels VALORANT team suspended from the Masters I for alleged sexual abuse of an ex-girlfriend. Mexican organization Estral Esports is banned from Rainbow Six Siege competition for throwing a match that resulted in relegation. Xbox has finalized the acquisition of Bethesda and will add 20 Bethesda games to Xbox Game Pass Friday. The Outer Worlds has announced a new DLC pack, Murder on Eridanos, which launches next week. And finally, Square Enix has announced their first ever Square Enix Presents live stream for March 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern, featuring 40 minutes of updates, including the next game in the Life is Strange franchise. This was your 6 in 60 seconds. And as always, the 6 in 60 seconds is brought to you by our sponsor for the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, Ghost Shaver. Ghost Shaver is designed to feel like it's an extension of your arm, allowing you to reach anywhere on your head, face, or body. Its precision cutting system gives you a close and smooth shave every single time. And its 5 different rotary flex action, super thin blades, coupled with its patent handheld design, fit into the palm of your hand, giving you a firm and controlled grip for the kind of shave that you want. That's ghostshaver.com, a shave above the rest. Yes, those were the 6 in 60 seconds, and honestly, between the Venn article I wrote this week with all the nuts stuff that was in there and looking more into this Sinatra story, it's just very disheartening. You know, it's very it's horrible to see the things like that, where a guy who's at the top of his game, top of the esports world, just can't be a civil human being, can't be a proper person, and has to do the things that he is allegedly done, is accused of having done by this ex-girlfriend of his. Now, if due diligence is done and the investigation comes out and there was some fabrication, then fine. But at the moment, A, you should always believe a victim until proven otherwise. And B, the evidence that she has is pretty strong. So I will be keeping an eye on that unfortunate situation to see where it goes from here. But enough about that. Enough about the people that aren't playing this weekend. Let's talk about the people that are and get into the VALORANT Masters I final tournament. So this VALORANT Champions Tour is split into multiple stages. We've already had the first 6 weeks of Stage 1, the Challengers Open and Closed qualifiers. The first week of Challengers qualifiers was open to anybody who wanted to register, up to, I believe, 32 teams, maybe 64. And then the closed qualifiers went from those 64 to the top 8, where there was an eventual winner. Points that were then given out based on wins and placement in the tournament, and we have our top 8 in the Masters I. And our matchups for this in the winner's side are Envy versus Gen G, Xset versus FaZe Clan, Sentinels versus Luminosity, and the Immortals versus the 100 Thieves. Now, I am recording this on Thursday night, so we have already had a couple of results come in. Team Envy won 2 maps to 1 over Gen G, and FaZe swept Xset 2 maps to nothing, continuing their momentum from winning the Stage 3 Challengers tournament last weekend, only losing 1 map the entire time in that tournament. So they are really moving strong, this FaZe Clan, in this VALORANT tournament. I'm interested to see if they can keep it going against Envy later on this weekend. The matches that are happening tomorrow, or today, if you're listening to this when it's posted on Friday, are Sentinels versus Luminosity Gaming and Immortals versus 100 Thieves, like I said. Honestly, I don't know about the Sentinels, considering they're missing one of their top players in the aforementioned Sinatra. Honestly, considering A, the loss of the player, and B, the controversy surrounding said player, I would not be surprised if they go 0-2. They lose in the winner's bracket, and they lose again in the loser's bracket, and they're out of the tournament early. It's just not something that's easy to come back from. It's not something that's easy to deal with when you're a teammate, because A, you have the chemistry that's being disrupted by bringing someone new in. Not to say that the new player's not good. It's just, a team has to gel before they can really come into their own. Not to mention the heinous things that he's being accused of. So forgive me if I am not confident in the Sentinels' chances. So a little bit of how the format works. Like I said, we started with the winner's bracket matches, the first set of winner's bracket matches today. Tomorrow we will have the other two. Saturday we will get into the loser side, and we will do the full loser's bracket on that side, and then we will get into the winner's bracket round 2 on Sunday. So after this weekend, we will have 2 teams left in the winner's side and 4 teams left on the loser's side. So 6 of the 8 teams will still be here. 2 of the 8 teams will be done. Next weekend, Friday, March the 19th, we will have that final winner's bracket tournament, as well as the second round of losers. We will then finish the loser's side on Saturday, and on March 21st, next Sunday, we will have our grand finals of the first Regional Masters North America in Valorant Champions Tour history. This is the first season for Valorant. The game's not even a year old yet, so plenty of Valorant to watch, plenty of things to look at if you are keeping track of what's going on here. Now, if I have to predict, if I'm going to list these 8 teams in the order of what I think they're going to do, honestly, like I said, I do not think the Sentinels have a good chance of winning. Again, not because I don't think they can't, because I don't know if they're going to be able to come back from the nonsense that they're going to have to deal with in this in this first tournament. To have something like this dropped on you 4 days before the first match in this tournament, and then to have to get a new player in there and to have to learn the new players, not foibles or capabilities, and just get in there and do things like I don't know, man. I want to be wrong, and I want them to do well in spite of the nonsense, but I just don't see it. Dang it, I just do not see it. So if we're talking about the rest of the teams here, let's go for honestly, Xset, I think, is next out. Xset was swept by the FaZe clan in that first round, and they're going up against Gen G, who gave a tough fight to Team Envy. I have a little bit of foresight and hindsight in this one because Xset and Gen G have already lost, but I do think that Xset will be the first one eliminated in that first matchup. So Xset and Sentinels will be the 2 teams, in my opinion, who will not move on to next weekend's action. And if I have to pick the top 2 teams to stay in the winner's side going into next weekend, I would give it to the FaZe clan just because of the way that the momentum that they have from last weekend's tournament win to now. They're going to be hard to beat. They're really feeling themselves right now. So I am very comfortable with the FaZe getting into the winner's finals. As I am with 100 Thieves, I feel like this team is always in contention, always in there. And after winning the first strike back in December, if my memory serves me correctly, that they were the ones that won the first strike back then. And they're just a very, very good team that I enjoy watching. Hiko is one of the best players in Valorant at the moment. So FaZe versus 100 Thieves in the winners finals, and I would put FaZe in the final. I am comfortable putting FaZe in the final. Again, momentum is a hard thing to break, and it's bad enough that the teams that are facing them are having to face a difficult team, but they also now have to deal with a difficult team who has been winning like crazy lately. So FaZe Clan in the winner's side, and then parsing out the losers side once we get through all the different teams that are still there. I do think that it could be a rematch between FaZe and 100 Thieves in the finals. A lot of times in these tournaments, particularly like Call of Duty and Valorant and stuff like that I've seen so far, winners finals tend to be rematched a lot. So to see a FaZe and 100 Thieves rematch would not surprise me in the finals of this. And I do think FaZe is going to just carry on from the Stage 3 challengers and take the whole thing. They are just a solid team all around between Corey and Baby Bay. Baby Bay playing out of his mind last weekend, and it sounds like he did the same today. I like Corey and Baby Bay and Raucus are all Overwatch transfers. So to see them now getting into their own and starting to do very well is awesome, because from the article I wrote back in December or January, whatever that was, the Overwatch players were having a little bit more trouble getting acclimated as opposed to the CSGO veterans. So to see them now starting to figure it out is really cool. So I kind of like rooting for FaZe Clan in this instance. I don't have any skin in the game because none of these teams that I'm seeing are, representing this city. So it's just a matter of who I think is going to do the best in the tournament. And right now, until they lose, FaZe just keeps on winning. They only lost one map last weekend, and they swept their team earlier Thursday. So there's no reason to think that they can't keep going until proven otherwise. I'm going to ride that horse all the way, hopefully, to a Masters victory. Taking out 100 Thieves, like I said, in the final match. Now, 100 Thieves is no slouch either. Like I said earlier, they have Hiko. They have a lot of very, very good teams. I don't know. I think the FaZe are too good right now, and will just keep it on until the end of this tournament. So if you want to check out the VALORANT Masters tournament this weekend, if you want to see what VALORANT's all about, all of the matches this weekend start at 3 o'clock Eastern. And the matches next weekend start at 4 o'clock Eastern, so a little bit later next weekend. And all of the matches are at twitch.tv/VALORANT_esports_NA, because we are in the North American region. So I would highly, highly recommend that you check this game out. It's a 5-on-5. Basically, take the search and destroy mode from Call of Duty League, where it's 5-on-5. Well, it's 4-on-4 in Call of Duty League now, but it's 5 players versus 5 players. One team is on offense, the other team is on defense. The other team has a spike that they have to plant and detonate within a certain amount of time, and the other team just has to defend one of the 2 spots that they can find it. But also, if you're eliminated by an opponent, you stay eliminated in that round until the next round happens, and then it's the first one to 13 points, I believe, takes the entire match, or the map in that case, and wins the game. So it's a lot of back and forth, it's a lot of stop and start, but it is a very, very fun game to watch. Also, the economy inside the game, this is definitely different from Call of Duty. So as the rounds progress, the better you do, the more money you earn, and then money can be used to purchase weapons right there on the fly, so you can upgrade every single round of the match. So it is really interesting to see how they start with like little pistols in the beginning and go all the way up to massive assault rifles and things like that at the end. A lot of strategy, a lot of thought goes into this game, even for those watching it, because you never know exactly what strategies are going to come out as the game progresses. But definitely one that is fun to watch, definitely one that's pretty easy to pick up on. And now is the time to get into it. Like I said earlier, it's in its infancy. Still, we're not at the year mark yet. We're the 9-month mark in about 9 days. It was 9 days ago was the 9-month mark. Came out in June the 2nd of 2020. So now's the time. If you want to try out a new game or you want to get familiar with another game, VALORANT Masters I is the perfect time to learn the teams that are worth following and figure out the format of the game and see if it's something that you're into. And if you have a PC good enough to actually play it and you want to dip your toe in there, It is free to play, so you can just download it and off you go. I did that for a little while back in June when it first launched, because I knew that I would be one to cover it as the season went on, and it didn't go well for me, but the 20-somethings that I was playing with were very appreciative and very respectful of the old man they were carrying on their back throughout the competition. So cheers to you, mates, wherever you are 9 months ago, for carrying this poor soul through a Valorant match or two. So, yes, Valorant Masters going on right now. Check it out on their Twitch page, and I highly, highly recommend you get in on the action now, because it's only getting bigger as the first ever Valorant Champions Tour season moves on. Now, as usual, I would put it on tap here, but unlike last week where there was only one game to really talk about, there are a couple of games to talk about here, but there's nothing new. And by that I mean they're all ports. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, is coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Switch. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is coming to the Switch. Marvel's Avengers finally gets its Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 upgrade. And then Stubbs the Zombie, that port I was talking about earlier, 2 weeks ago when it was announced during the Nintendo Direct, is coming out this week as well. So a bunch of ports. If we did go on tap, it'd be either a lot of wine or dark beer porters. So I don't really want to dwell too much on it. But there are games to play. If you want to play the upgraded versions, they are coming out. And if you already own the games and you have an upgraded system, those upgrades should be free. So keep an eye out and see what it is you are looking for. But now we're going to get into some exciting news from this past week. A classic retro game franchise. It's been around forever, since the early days of gaming. And I mean like the original Nintendo in 1989 is when this game first launched. Or this franchise first launched a game, excuse me. And I am very, very excited for this new one, based on the first trailer that I've seen so far. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in video games. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge was announced earlier this week. I believe it was Wednesday that trailer dropped. It is a retro love letter to the old-fashioned arcade beat-em-ups of yesteryear. Your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade machines, your Turtles in Time arcade machine or Super Nintendo. Just a very, very cool-looking game that made a very good first impression by the developer of the Scott Pilgrim video game, as well as some other original titles, and a publisher who published Streets of Rage 4 last year, so they are well equipped to handle retro-style reboots like this. There is a lot to like in Shredder's Revenge. It is a lot to be excited about. But I thought, since the trailer was only a minute and a half, and there was some things to parse, but not a whole lot to analyze. The biggest thing, I think, is that the gameplay did not show playable April O'Neil and Splinter, but the animated cutscene beforehand showed them kicking butt, so we may be playing as those two in this game. I wanted to go back in time and look and run down some of the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games of all time. Some of my personal favorites, some games that I missed, that were on some consoles and were very popular, and that I just knew that they were popular based on my working in GameStop at the time. I just want to get into the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in video games because it's probably more extensive than you realize. So we're going to start with the aptly named Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and get used to that because there's many more with that name and that name alone. And we are talking about the old original Nintendo NES game where half of the game is walking through the city in a top-down format, and then when you go into a building or you go into the sewers, it switches to a side-scrolling action game with multiple enemies. And this is the game where if you were Donatello, you could cheese some of the bosses by jumping up to the top of the screen and just using your big long bow to hit damage on them. This was the game where that came from, and it's one of the most impossible games you'll ever play. It's very, very difficult, a lot of fun, but super duper difficult, and very notorious for that difficulty. Ultra Games and Konami were very much sadists in this regard, just because of how difficult it is. I wouldn't put it up there with, say, like Battletoads. It's not that difficult, but it's very difficult. So if you're going to go back that far into the annals, I do want to warn you that you're going to have a heck of a time with this game. But then, right after that, the arcade game, the classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, hit arcades in 1989, followed by an NES port in 1990. And this is where my personal love for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came to fruition. I played the absolute crap out of the NES port of that arcade game, and then played it in the arcades as a kid. Never beat it in the arcade. Did eventually beat it when it was ported to consoles not too long ago. But I did not beat it in the arcades. The NES version I did beat, even though it was double the size with extra stages. Had a little bit of extra oomph in it, the NES version. So it's my preferred version. Did finish that at some point as a kid. But, man, arcade game, talk about absolute memories. Just playing that on the NES on a Sunday morning before anything's going on. Oh, so good. And in that regard, if something was going on and I had my trusty Game Boy with me, I was playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan, a 1990 release on the Game Boy, the first ever Ninja Turtles game for a portable platform. It was a basic side-scrolling platform game with some enemies and some action. Had some bonus stages hidden throughout. Fun game. I remember getting stuck in one particular place over and over again and not being able to get over the hump, which really bothered me. But another very cool game in the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Actually had two full sequels, 1991, Back from the Sewers, and 1992, I believe, or 93, excuse me, Radical Rescue. Never played those. Didn't even know they existed until I was doing research for this piece that I'm doing right now for you. So maybe I'll dig out the old Game Boy or find an emulator or something and just to play those games for posterity's sake. But I didn't even know they were a thing until just now. Because I would say in 1992, a Ninja Turtles game hit the Super Nintendo, 91 in the arcades, and that was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. And where I'm sitting right here, right now, this is the peak of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video games. It has been since 1992. There have been games that have come close, but nothing has captured the feeling of that 1992 Super Nintendo game, Turtles in Time. I played the absolute crap out of that cartridge. I would be surprised if that cartridge didn't turn to dust within 2 years. It was such a good, fun action game. Whenever I wanted to play something really quick, I just popped that in and off I went. I will say that the 2009 remake, or like reshelled it was called, for Xbox Live and PlayStation Network was not very good. The 1992 Super Nintendo game is the best version of Turtles in Time for my money. Some may say the arcade game, which fine, but no. I'll take Super Nintendo any day of the week and twice on Sunday, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Now, there were a couple of other console games back in that era, like the Manhattan Project on the NES, which I played a little bit. It was a similar game to the arcade game, just with a bit of a different graphic style and some special attacks and stuff like that. Fun game, but nothing to really write home about in the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video games. Hyperstone Heist was interesting. This was on Sega Genesis, the first ever, and I believe maybe not the only, the first ever Sega Genesis Ninja Turtles game release. This was 1992. It was basically Turtles in Time, even with some levels being reused, but it was a completely new story. There were new levels. There was a new boss fight. There was a lot of new elements, or at least edited elements, from Turtles in Time on the Genesis. And while it's not the same for me, it's still fun. It's still a fun Turtles game to get into, looking like an extension almost, or an expansion pack maybe, of Turtles in Time. So that's, if you have an old Sega Genesis lying around and you can get Hyperstone Heist cheap, give it a shot. That's one I would recommend going back to if you can do that. But one I absolutely recommend you go back to just for the spectacle of this game, that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. This was a Street Fighter style 2D fighting game starring the Ninja Turtles and a bunch of their villains. And this is another one that I absolutely played the absolute crap out of whenever I had the chance. I rented this game, probably 5 times straight from the Blockbuster that we used to go to back when I was a kid. Just an absolutely awesome game. You had the 4 turtles that you could play as, and then in the multiplayer mode, in the 2-player mode where you fought against your friends, you could play as this big clawed-looking dude called War, who was actually from the Archie comics. Asuka, who was just a ninja girl who was pretty cool. Wingnut, the humanoid alien bat, which is one of the better Turtles villains, if you ask me. Chrome Dome, an amazing Turtles villain, initially created by Shredder, an android to destroy the Turtles. A mutant shark from the future called Armagon, also from the Archie comic series. And the 2 bosses were the Rat King, who is one of the most iconic Turtles villains out besides Shredder, if you ask me, and Karai, who was the leader of Foot Clan in Japan and Shredder's rival. Also, Shredder was available to play as in this game as well. I loved it. I absolutely loved the Super Nintendo version of the fighting game, and I specify the Super Nintendo version because there was a Sega Genesis version that was a little bit different. The one thing the Sega Genesis version had over the SNES version was playable Casey Jones, playable April O'Neil, and and 2 other characters, Ray Fillet, who was from the Archie comics, and Sisyphus, who was an original like beetle-looking guy. But playable Casey Jones, I wanted Casey Jones to be in the Super Nintendo version so bad, and it never happened because he was one of my favorite non-Turtle characters in that franchise. But he was in the Genesis version, and I didn't really have a Genesis until later. I had a Super Nintendo, and I love Casey Jones so much. But no, the Super Nintendo Tournament Fighters, play that game. Really, really, really cool stuff. If you can dig it up, it's an awesome game. And now we get into, believe it or not, there was a bit of a lull outside of like Tiger Electronic handheld sort of things. There was a lull in Ninja Turtles video games from 1993 till 2003. A Game Boy Advance Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game came out in 2003, and it was the first one since Tournament Fighters, which absolutely blows my mind. This was the first Ninja Turtles game for the Game Boy Advance. You played as each turtle through specific levels in side-scrolling traditional sense, and then you had other things that happened, like a bike race between Raphael and Casey Jones and a couple other things. But the first game released after Tournament Fighters in 93, a 10-year lull in games, which is hard to believe. But then we picked up immediately where we left off. Ninja Turtles came out on all the consoles as well. Konami came back to adapt the 2003 version of the TV show into a brand new game. The Game Boy Advance game got 2 sequels, Battle Nexus and Mutant Nightmare, which I note for 2 reasons. One, I used to see their cartridges all the time, traded in while I was working at GameStop. Used to come in all the time. And 2, each of them have ports, slightly altered, but ports of the old arcade games unlockable in them. Battle Nexus has the original, and Mutant Nightmare has Turtles in Time. So if you bought Ninja Turtles 3 Mutant Nightmare on the Game Boy Advance and you played enough of it, you could also play Turtles in Time, a 2-for-1. I used to love those. Never got into these games. Please don't be thinking that I played these Game Boy Advance games. Didn't really have a Game Boy Advance, so I missed out on them. But having those old ports there, pretty cool. Mutant Melee was like basically Ninja Turtles Mario Party. Not really sure we're going to talk about that one because it's very, very weird. And then we had another lull in the console video game offerings for Ninja Turtles. And then we have the TMNT game, which was based on the CGI movie from 2007. And I think that's all we really have to say about that. That movie was not very good, and people try not to remember that it happened. In 2009, a Smash Brothers style game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up, was developed by Ubisoft, who assembled a team of people who worked on Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Wii, and also former members of the Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive teams to make this game. And it was basically just a low-budget Smash Brothers. Not to say that's bad if you like Super Smash Brothers enough and Turtles enough to, swallow your pride a little bit. It's a good game. It's just not, it's not very good. So I hate to say it. I love Super Smash Brothers games and I love Turtles, but didn't work for me. Then 2009, the aforementioned Turtles in Time reshelled the port of Turtles in Time for the Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network. Not very good. Then we had another bit of a lull in between games, and then we had Out of the Shadows, the first Ninja Turtles game by Activision, loosely based on the 2012 TV series. Not bad. A typical licensed pack-in sort of game. Same with the 2013 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, which was based on the new Nickelodeon series as well. And then we're getting into the 2014 movie, the Michael Bay movie, with all the weird, the weird looking CGI where they're almost like bodybuilder humans. That's weird. Danger of the Ooze, which was another game that was based on the current TV series in 2014 at the time. And then the last major console game starring the Ninja Turtles was in 2016, Mutants in Manhattan, developed by the team behind Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, Platinum Games. So it was very action heavy, very action oriented, a bit monotonous. It was very hack and slashy, just pressing buttons and moving to different areas, but still a lot of fun and very difficult. One that I really, really enjoyed more than I thought I would. I have a bit of a soft spot for it. And that's it. That's the history of the Ninja Turtles in video games, at least on the consoles, between when they first debuted in the 80s and 2016, which was the most recent one. That's not to say the Turtles have not appeared in certain places. They have been racers in the Nickelodeon Kart Racers 1 and 2. They were playable fighters in Injustice 2, which is a DC Comics fighting game. So they were fighting like Superman and Batman and stuff like that, which was very, very cool. And other little things like that. But this Shredder's Revenge will be the first actual console game starring the Turtles since 2016. So the history of the Ninja Turtles in video games is a bit of a ebb and flow. You have a bunch of games that come out in a 4 or 5 year span, then you have a couple years off, and then you're back on again, and you're back off again, and this is just flipping the switch back on. I would equate that to the Ninja Turtles being such a successful franchise that people don't want to see it go. I get that because I'm one of them, and I'm hoping that Shredder's Revenge can bring me back to yesteryear with some of that excellent classic arcade game or Turtles in Time era gameplay that I miss so much. So good luck, Tribute Games. Good luck, Emu. I will be watching and hoping that you give us the type of Turtles game that we are looking for. And I hope you enjoyed this little walk down memory lane as we looked at the best and sort of worst in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise of video games. And to wrap up things tonight, we're going to talk about Fortnite. Yes, I know I've been talking a lot about Fortnite since I picked it back up in this current season, Chapter 2, Season 5. But the current season ends this coming week, ends on Tuesday. And I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about the season that was, how it was able to hook me, how it kept me, and get into a little bit of where I think it's going in Season 6. There are two possibilities that I see happening here. We'll get into that shortly. First, what drew me in, to be completely honest, to Season 5 of Fortnite's Chapter 2 was The Mandalorian. Adding The Mandalorian as the first skin you get for buying the Battle Pass was pretty shrewd, and it was definitely something that made me think, all right, I love The Mandalorian, I love the show, maybe I can give this Fortnite a go if it allows me to play as The Mandalorian. And then they decided that level 1, they'd give you the Mandalorian, but level 100 is where you'd have to get to hang out with the child, the baby Yoda. His name is actually Grogu. And that was shrewd too, because all I could think was, man, I really want baby Yoda to hang out with me, or the child to hang out with me while I'm blasting people on the Fortnite island. You mean to tell me I got to get all the way to level 100 to do it? Well, all right, here goes nothing. And I did it. I did it happily. I am very comfortably at level 100 before the end of the season. In fact, I think I'm a level 159 now, because eventually you can keep going up in levels and just get alternate versions of the Battle Pass skins. But in doing that, I found a love for the game. The gameplay loop is so addictive. It just, you drop in, you loot stuff, you fight till you lose or you win, and you rinse and repeat. And the crazy things that can happen in every game, no game is ever the same. No game definitely 100% resembles the game before it. And it's just a ton of fun to play. And I really am glad that I got into it. It helps that I have someone to play with. I have a couple guys to play online with me. That certainly helps. And what also was shrewd on their part was introducing premium skin packs of characters that didn't necessarily appeal to their assumed demographic. You think Fortnite, you think little kids, not like small kids, but like preteens, 10 to 12, maybe teenagers, maybe a little bit older, in the more competitive scenes. But you're thinking like kids, like 10 to 13, middle school kids playing Fortnite, having a good time. But most, if not all, of the premium skins that they released were not targeted towards kids. It started with Kratos of God of War and Master Chief from Halo, two gaming franchises that go back to the 2000s. These were definitely targeted toward an older gaming audience. And then you had The Walking Dead's Daryl Dixon and Michonne, which is great, but again, no kid in their with parents in their right mind should be playing those games. Those were not targeted towards kids either. And then from there, you start to see costumes that no kid, even more so than The Walking Dead, no kid is really going to be able to identify who they are. So you had the Predator, you had Sarah Connor and the Terminator T-800, you had characters from Tron. Now, while they were designed as the 2010, 2012 Tron movies, Tron is definitely an 80s product, even with that new movie. Ripley and the Xenomorph from Aliens, and then Chun-Li and Ryu from Street Fighter. Now, that last one might not seem as focused on older audiences as you would think, with Street Fighter V being current and Street Fighter IV coming back in 2009. But the fact that both of those costumes are so heavily influenced and modeled by the Street Fighter II aesthetic, with the gate being reused stage and the sound effects that you can play, both with certain taunts and with the arcade machine that you can wear on your back, that was a nostalgia trip. That wasn't targeted at little Billy who doesn't know who these characters are. That was targeted at me. They came at me, basically. They came right at me with that Street Fighter 2 pack and said, you seem to be a nostalgic fool. You're starting to wane on Fortnite. Here's Ryu and Chun-Li. Get moving. And I'm like, oh, man. And I put the money up, and there we go. It's interesting to see that they're starting to, at least seemingly starting to target older people, older players, older demographics, because it seemed, to me, it makes sense. They've conquered the younger demographic. The 10 to 12s, as I mentioned, are playing Fortnite like crazy, making Epic Games a ton of money. So for them to now appeal to the older group, the older demographics, the older gamers, makes a perfect sense. And anyone who decides to play based on these costumes will likely get just as hooked in the gameplay loop as I did. Because it's so easy. And it's so easy to understand. It's so easy to play. But looking ahead to Season 6, which starts on Tuesday, they've already told us there'll be a minor single-player event where you can play through and see what happens at the end of Season 5, and then Season 6 will start. There are two ways that this can go. First is a DC Comics-themed season following the Marvel-themed season from Season 4. And the reason I think that is because there is a companion comic series coming out that tells a story where Batman goes to the 0 Point Island. He's been here before. He's been a costume before, but he goes to the island and he's investigating what's going on with the little 0 Point thing floating around in the sky and all this other stuff. So it could be a DC Comics season. You could see a battle pass of all DC Comics characters, just like you saw one during the Marvel season with all the Marvel characters, Iron Man and Thor and Groot and Storm and Mystique and all that stuff. Or, and this one I think is the one I'm leaning towards, based on the story of the game, the blonde dude that you've seen around, Jonesy, is trying to keep everyone in the loop, and he's been recruiting all these hunters, all these extra characters. He's been recruiting the Predator. He recruited Ripley and the Xenomorph. He recruited the Street Fighter, so on and so forth. And I think my hunch is that the end of this season is going to be him trying to transfer somebody else, and then just blowing the whole thing up. And then the gates are open for anyone who wants to put a skin in Fortnite that can do it. It's not helped by the fact that one of the hidden graphics that people keep finding in the source code are that of Peter Griffin from Family Guy, which would be an absolute crazy skin to add into Fortnite. That gives me some pause to think it's just going to be a common DC comic season. Also, those comics that are coming out that tell this extra Fortnite story also come with skins. So why would you do a battle pass plus the extra skins if you're already getting the skins in through the comic? If you read the comics, you get the codes. If you get the codes, you get the skins. So for me, I think it's just going to be the Wild West. Anybody is on the table, and these skins, the battle pass skins and other premium skin packs will be crazier than Season 5. They're just going to go all out. To me, I really think they're going to take a Super Smash Brothers approach where they just, as many characters as they can think of, just fill this game with some of the craziest crossovers you could come up with and really get that appeal to everyone, because there's no reason why Epic shouldn't be targeting the older generations. They have, like I said earlier, they have the kids. They have the younger demographic in their back pocket. Now it's time to appeal to the older ones. So give me some other crazy 80s, 90s, 2000s TV show skins or video game skins. Give me Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. Give me Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell. Both of those would fit into Fortnite very well. Give me Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin. They wouldn't, but they'd be fun. Give me, give me the dinosaurs from ABC's Dinosaurs in those big rubber suits. Not the mama. Don't give me the baby. That would be bad. But give me Earl, the main dinosaur. That would be insane. Weird stuff like that. You know, give me Aeon Flux for the MTV crowd. Give me The Boys if you want to go newer. Adult-oriented. Homelander in this game would be awesome. Starlight. Billy Butcher is perfect for this game. I don't care what anybody says. The sky is the limit to me. And to then limit yourself to just a DC comic style season would not make a lot of sense if I'm Epic. It's not something I would do. Not something I would advise. So go with the nuclear option. Go with everybody's on the table. Nothing is off limits. If you have an idea, let us know, and we'll put them in. You want Goku from Dragon Ball Z? Bam! Goku's in Fortnite. You want a bunch of WWE wrestlers? Bam! Here come the WWE wrestlers and their characters. You want the guy from Cyberpunk or Ezio from Assassin's Creed? Boom! V and Ezio. Let's do it. It's just anybody. Anybody at all. From gaming, from movies, from TV, heck, from literature. Give me Willy Wonka running around a chocolate factory singing while he's shooting people. I don't know. It's there's really no limit to what they can do, and Fortnite is so popular, even now, in the midst of what we're in right now. Still so popular that anybody in their right mind would want to sign on to partner with them. So make Season 6 all about going absolutely crazy. Start the second half of Chapter 2, I assume, the second half of Chapter 2 with an absolute bang, and then fix it all by the end of Chapter 2, Season X, and start Chapter 3 off wherever you want. So those are my Fortnite Season 6 predictions, and that prediction is the nuclear option. Looking forward to when the season starts next Tuesday. Looking forward to see what Epic has in store. And I hope that if you play Fortnite, you are too. But that is the end of episode 39 of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeart Radio. Thank you, as always, for lending your ears to an hour of video game talk and esports talk. I really like putting this together for you folks, and I hope that you like listening to me too. I hope you learned something. I hope you take something from this, whether it's your now new extensive library of knowledge regarding Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in video games, or a desire to watch VALORANT to see what's going on there, the Masters I, and supported by a local group. Let's not forget, Nerd Street Gamers is supporting that, based here in Philadelphia. So not only would you be supporting esports, you'd be supporting local esports. So absolutely get in on that if you can. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the episodes that I put out from here on out. Like I said, I really, really enjoy putting this together for you and informing you. And I hope that you help. I hope that my dulcet tones make it easier to understand. If there are any topics that you want me to cover, any questions that you have, feel free to tweet me at BigManFanelli on Twitter. That's BigManFanelli. You can find me on there. Listen to me every Thursday at 4 o'clock with Sean Brace on the Daily Ticket, where we're talking more about esports and video games. There's a lot of esports coverage happening here, because once the pandemic opens up, sky's the limit, baby. And we're going to take it all the way to the moon. Get out of the way, game stonks. Cheesesteaks and Controllers is on the up and up. Again, thank you so much for listening. My name is Jason Fanelli, and I'm the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. Until next week, this has been episode 39 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast. Have a great week, and I will talk to you again next time. See you later.